And this is another episode of Watership. The book got jacked up. Of Watership Down. Anyway, it has been months since I last done an audiobook of Watership Down. Finally, after many months, past summertime, I grew a specifically special 5 o'clock shadow. I got my bunny ears on, and we are going to get down to episode 35. Groping. Groping? Groping. Groping. Groping? Sounds like groping to me. Bunny's a grope. Okay. Anyway, here we go. Episode 35. And then, before the mark souffle, said Serville, I always have a look at the weather. The previous mark sent a runner, of course, to say that they're going down, and he'll report on the weather. And I always go and have a look for myself as well. In the moonlight, we put up sentries fairly close in and keep on the move ourselves to make sure no one goes too far. But in the rain or darkness, we send the mark up in small groups, one after another, and each group has a sentry in charge. In absolute desperate weather, we ask generals permission to postpone the souffle. But do they often try to run away? Asked Bigwig. During the afternoon, he was up and down the runs on the crowded barrels with Serville and Evans, the other mark officer, and thought to himself that he's never in his life seen such a cheerless, dispirited bunch of rabbits. They don't strike me as a very difficult bunch. Most of them are no trouble, it's true, said Serville. No, actually Evans. But you never know when trouble's coming. For instance, you have said there wasn't a more docile lot in Africa than the right flank. And then one day they get 4 halesso wished upon them by the council. And the next evening, Bugloss isn't very quick on the upkeep for some reason. Suddenly, these halesso played a trick on him, and bunk. That was the end of him. To say nothing about poor old Charlock, killed on the Iron Road. When something like that happens, and it happens like lightning and isn't always planned, sometimes it gets more like a frenzy. A rabbit tears away on impulse, and you don't knock him over quick. The next thing you know, you have 3 or 4 will be off after him. The only safe way to watch all of them is when they're above ground. And you do your own laxing when you can. After all, that's what we're here for. That and the patrols. Now about Bering Haraka, said Serville. You can't be too strict. If the general finds any Haraka in the fields, he'll stuff your tail down your throat. They always try to dodge burying, though. They want to be natural, the antisocial little beasts. They just don't realize that everyone's good depends on everyone's cooperation. That's what I do, is set 3 or 4 of them to dig a new trough in the ditch every day as a punishment. You can nearly always find someone to punish if you try hard enough. Sounds like a couple of NCOs I knew when I was in the Army. Fucking bastards. Today's squad fills up yesterday's trough and digs another. Then there's always special runs leading to the bottom of the ditch, and the marks have got used to those and no one else can go out and pass Haraka. We keep our Haraka sentry in the ditch. Make sure they come back. Yeah, Haraka is shit. So you're going to have a shit sentry. So you're going to have a guy sitting there making sure that you shit, and then he'll watch you as you get out from taking a shit. Boy, you know, can you imagine having that detail? What would you do in the Army? I was shit detail. I watched people take a crap. It's almost as bad as a meat gazer when they're doing a piss test. Well, how do you check them in after souffle? Asked Bigwig. Well, we all know them by sight, replied Sir Bill. And we watch them go down. And there's only 2 entrance holes for the mark. One of us sits at each hole. Every rabbit knows which hole he's supposed to use, and I shall certainly miss any of mine who did not go down. And the sentries come in last of all. I only called them down once. I'm quite sure the entire mark is down. And once they're down, of course, they can't very well get out without a sentry at each hole. Digging, I should hear. They're not always allowed to dig in Africa without permission from the council. It is only really dangerous time is when there's an alarm, say a man or a fox. A fox. Then we all bolt for the nearest hole, of course. So far, it doesn't seem to have occurred to anyone that they could bolt the other way and have quite a long start before he's missed. Still, no rabbit will bolt towards the lil, and that's the real safe part. You know, lil means the enemy. Okay, that could be a cop, that could be a gangbanger, that could be a insurgent, that could be an angry wife. Well, anyway, I admire your thoughtfulness, said Bigwig, thinking to himself that his secret task seems to be more hopeless than he's expected. I'll get the hang of all of it as soon as I can. And when do we have a chance of a patrol? I expect the general will take you on a patrol himself to begin with, said Evans. He had me, and you may not be so keen when you go out a day or 2 with him. You'll be worn out. And still, I must admit, Leila, you're a fine size, and you've been living rough for some time, so you'll probably manage it all right. At this moment, a rabbit with a scar across his throat came down the run. The neck mark is going down, Captain Turtle, he said. It's a beautiful evening, and I would make the most of it. Because of the throat thing. I would make the most of it. Ow, that hurt. I was wondering when you were going to show up. Surprise, Sir Bill. Tell Captain Samepoint I'll be bringing my mark up at once. Turning to one of his own sentries nearby, Sir Bill told him to go around the burrows and send everybody to Sunfly, which is eat. Send everybody up to go eat some fucking grass. Now, he said, Evans, you go to the far near hole as usual. Daylight, come with me to the nearer one, and we'll send 4 sentries out on the line to start with. Then, when the mark has gone out, we'll add 4 more and keep 2 in reserve. And I'll see you at the usual place by the big flint by the bank. Whatever the hell the flint is. Bigwig followed Sherville on the run, down which came the scents of grass, warm grass, clover, top trefoil. More fucking plants. And he found most of the runs closer and stuffier than he's used to, but no doubt there was very few holes in the open air. With the prospects of evening souffle, even in Africa, was pleasant. He thought of the breeched leaves rustling on the far up honeycomb inside. I wonder how old Holly's getting along. He thought of whether I'll ever see him again. Or Hazel either, for that matter of that. Well, I'll give these blighters something to think about before I'm finished. I do feel lonely, though. How hard is it to keep a secret by yourself? They reached the mouth of the hole, and Sir Bill went outside to look around, and he returned and he took up station at the top of the run. And as Bigwig found a place alongside, he noticed for the first time the opposite wall of the run is kind of an access to an open cave, and with this, there was 3 rabbits squatting. Those on either side was tough, stoated-looking members of the Ausla, the Council Police, the Neo-Nazis, the SS, the SD, the Gestapo, the Kimpakai, and the FBI, the CIA, and all that other BS. That's what these guys are. But in the one in the middle, as he stared at, the rabbit had almost very dark fur, almost black. But this is not the most remarkable thing about him. He was dreadfully mutilated. His ears are nothing more than shapeless shreds, ragged at the edges, seamed with ill-knit scars beaded here and there, and there was lumps of proud bare flesh. My ears. One eyelid was misshapen and closed askew. Yeah. Despite the cool, exciting air of a July evening, he seems apathetic and torpid. He kept his gaze fixed on the ground and blinked constantly. After a time, he lowered his head and rubbed his nose on his forepaw in a listless manner, then scratched his neck and settled down to his former drooping position. Bigwig, his warm, impulsive nature stirred by curiosity and pity, went across the run. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Blackaba, sir," replied the rabbit. He didn't look up and spoke without expression, as though he's answered this question many times before. "Are you going to souffle?" said Bigwig. No doubt he thought this was some hero of the war and wounded in a great fight, now infirm, whose past services merited an honorable escort when he went out. "No, sir," answered the rabbit. "Why ever not?" said Bigwig. "It's a lovely evening." "I do not souffle at this time, sir." "Then why are you here?" asked Bigwig with his usual directness. "The Mark has sent me that evening souffle, sir," began the rabbit. "The Mark has... They come, He was hesitant and fell silent. When the owls up spoke, "Get on with it," he said. "I've come here from the Mark to see me," said the rabbit in his low, drained voice. "Every Mark should see how I've been punished, as I deserve for my treachery in trying to leave the warren. The council was merciful. The council was merciful. The council. I can't remember it, sir. I really can't." He burst out, turning to the sentry who had spoken. "I can't seem to remember anything." The sentry said nothing, and Bigwig, after staring and shock-silent for several moments, rejoined Serville. "Well, you're supposed to tell everybody who asks," said Serville. "Was getting sort of stupid after half a month of it. He tried to run away. Campion caught him, brought him back, and the council ripped up his ears and said he had to show that every morning and evening soup as an example to the others. But if you ask me, he won't last much longer. He'll meet a blacker rabbit than himself one of these nights." Bigwig shuddered, partly at his Carabel's tone of callous indifference, and partly of his own memories. The Mark was filling up now, and he watched as it went past, each darkening the entrance for a moment before hopping out under the hawthorn. It was clear that Serville prided himself on knowing his rabbits by name. He spoke to most of them, which is the pains to show that he was some knowledge of their personal lives. It seems to Bigwig that the answers he's got not particularly warm or friendly. He did not know whether to put it down to dislike of Serville or merely the lack of spirit that seems to be common with the rank and file in Amphrophon. He was closely on watch, as Blackberry advised him to be, for any signs of dissatisfaction or disaffection, or rebellion. Always got to have a rebellion. He seems to see little grounds of hope and expression in his face as he went by. At the end, a little group of 3 or 4 does talking amongst themselves. That means does, that means women, that means chicks. That means hooters, racks, mothers, future mothers. Well, I see you're all getting along with new friends. Shit, here comes the friggin' names. Nelthiata. Okay, said Serval to the first as she passed him. The doe, a pretty long-nosed rabbit, no more than 3 months old, hopped and looked after him. You'll be getting on yourself one day, Captain, I dare say. She replied, like Captain Malo. He got on. You know, why don't you send some devils on wide patrol? She paused for Serval to reply, but he made no answers, and did not speak to the does about Nelthelta into the field. What did she mean by that? Asked Bigwig. There's been some trouble, you know, said Serval. A bunch of does in the near fore started a row at the council meeting. The general says he must be broken up. He had a couple sent to us. They seem to be keeping an eye on them. They're no trouble themselves, but Nethathena is taken up with them. It seems like she made her cheeky and resentful. Sort of thing you saw now, but I don't really mind that. It shows they feel the owls on top. If the young does become quiet and polite, I'd be much more worried, you know. I should wonder if they'll be up to, but all the same, Thalelai, I'd like you to do what you can and bring those particular does and bring them more in line. Right, said Bigwig. By the way, one of the rules about mating. What's the rules about getting some ass? Mating? Said Serval. Well, if you want a doe, you have one. Ooh, that gives out the wrong impression. What about getting laid? If you want a girl, go and get one. What about that one? Sure. That might be the wrong freaking message, eh? Okay, well, these are rabbits there, so. Would it still be counted as rape? Even for bunny rabbits? Well, any doe in the mark, that is. We're not officers for nothing, are we? The does are under orders, and none of the bucks can stop you. That's definitely, bro. That just leaves you, me, and Evans, and we should hardly quarrel. There's plenty of girls after all. I mean, does after all. Oh, boy. Ooh, I want the one with the big furry ass. I see, said Bigwig. Well, I'll soon flail out, unless you got any other ideas. I'll go and talk to some of the mark and go around the sentries. Get the lie of the land. What about Blackabar? Leave him, said Serval. He's none of our business. Alzapha will keep him here until the mark comes back, and after they'll take him away. Bigwig made his way into the field, conscious of the wary glances of rabbits he passed. He felt perplexed and apprehensive. Now he's begun to began his dangerous task. He must, one way or another, for Kihar, to make it clear he was not ready to wait. There's nothing that can be done but take a chance and trust somebody, but whom? The war is all full of spies. Probably only General Woolwick knows who the spies are. Was there a spy watching him now? Well, I just have to trust my feelings, he thought. I'll go around the place a bit and see if I can make any friends. I'll do one thing. I know one thing. If I do succeed in getting any does out of this goddamn fucking place, I'll take that poor wretched friggin' Blackabar with me. Frith on a bridge. It makes me angry to think of him forced to sit there like the General Woomworth. Indeed, a gun's too good for that prick. Yeah. Good job, Bigwig. Fuck that guy. Nibbling and pondering, he moved slowly over the open meadow to the evening sun, and after a while he found that he was approaching a small hollow very much like the one on Watership Down, where he and Silver has found Kihar. In this hollow there was 4 does, and with their backs to him. He recognized them as a little group who went out last, and they apparently finished the hungry, intensive stage of feeding. While browsing and talking at leisure, you could see one of them that has the attention of the other 3. Even more than most rabbits, Bigwig loved the story, and he felt attracted by the prospect of hearing something new in this strange warren. He moved up quietly to the edge of the hollow just as the doe to speak. At once he realized it was no story, but yet he heard, like before, the rapid air, the rhythmic utterance, and the intent of the listeners. It was what they recalled. You remember the smell of carrots and silverweed dominating the crowd in the great burrow. But these verses went to his heart as silverweeds has not. And at the end of this video right now, I'm going to leave you with this poem. Long ago, a yellowhammer sang high on the thorn. He sang near a litter that the doe brought out to play. He sang in the wind and the kittens played below. Their time slipped by all under the elder bloom. But the bird flew away, now dark, my heart is dark. At the time we'll never play in the fields again. Long ago, the orange beetles clung to ryegrass stems. The windy grass was waving. A buck, a doe, ran through the meadow. They scratched a hole in the bank. They were all pleased under the hazel leaves. But the beetles died in the frost, and my heart is dark, and I shall never choose a mate again. The frost is falling, and frost falls on my body, my nostrils, my ears, torpid under the frost. A swift will come in spring, crying, news, news. The does dig new holes and flow with milk of your litters. I shall not hear the embryos return. Into my dulled body, across my sleep, there runs a wire fence to imprison the wind. I shall never feel the wind blowing again. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of part 1 of Watership Down, chapter 35. Groping. It's going to be up to you guys to make heads or tails of that BS. Anyway, this is me, and I'll be going on to part 2 of Watership Down. Hooah.